Good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson on Marshall. Too many events have been going on globally. There's a responsibility to bring to the fore on what is really going on internationally on this platform to keep you abreast of the situation globally. We're zooming on the UK, resignation of Boris Johnson. You might have heard also about Cameron, straight again down to Theresa May. And now Boris Johnson, they have one thing in common, resignation. Is that a plague in the UK political system, or is a means to an end? The resignation of Boris Johnson, is it connected to what is going on between Russia and Ukraine, or there are more things that we just do not understand playing out underneath the politics of UK? What are the implications globally, internally? How is it going to affect the war between Ukraine and Russia? All these and more will take a look at in today's installment of International Forum. With me here in the studio, I have vibrant gentlemen to share their thoughts and opinions on this particular discourse. So very close to me, he is an entrepreneur, political analyst, travel far and wide, and of course is very vast when you talk about knowledge internationally. I'd like to introduce Sonny Igebo. Sonny Igebo, welcome to International Forum. Yeah, I keep calling you Sonny Igebo. Etiosa Igebo.
You can add that.
Okay.
That comes with the price.
Oh, it comes with the price.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I'm not willing to pay any price right now. All right, not bad. Etiosa Igebo. Yes. I was very close to him. He is a vibrant youth, an entrepreneur, political analyst. Join me to welcome Evans Edusoma. Oh, I hope I got the name correctly.
Yes, you got it correctly.
All right. So no price for this one, right?
Yes.
So sorry for that.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So I really want to start off with you, Etiosa Igebo. I know you've traveled far and wide, and when all this will about Boris Johnson trying to resign, even after 50 members of his parliament choose to resign, he was still there standing strong, saying forward ever, backward never. All of a sudden, it dawned on him that he was almost standing alone. So he needed to do the honorable thing, that would tender his resignation. I gave an example, Theresa May, Gordon. They all follow the same footsteps. They either forced to resign or they voluntarily resign. What do you think is playing out itself in UK politics?
Well, United Kingdom is a country that I'm very familiar with, and when you look at the history of prime ministers or perhaps high-profile government officials over time that has had to step down from the position of authority, in the case of like Boris Johnson, you can understand that they all take a similar pattern. And that pattern, in a nutshell, describes how strong democracy is in this country. Democracy in those Western countries does not live with sentiments. It doesn't play out with people assuming that, okay, maybe the Prime Minister Boris Johnson is my friend, or is somebody that I've known for a long time. If they smell a rat and they feel that there's anything that is not right, which happens to showcase the tenets and the level of expectation of that office, they start to get at you, to step down, believing that there's somebody better who can do that job. In the case of Boris Johnson stepping down, I'm a bit surprised for him to be holding sway and assuming that he's not going to step down as Prime Minister if they find him culpable. I can go back to a couple of months back, about a year thereabout, during the COVID time, or just over a year. During the lockdown, you understand that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, was caught in the act. He was having a party when he asked people in the country to stay indoors to limit and prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
He got away with that, perhaps maybe he played God, knowing fully well the way the UK Parliament and the people who are there to represent their people usually carry out their duties. The representation of the people is number one and paramount in the assignment that they're going to do in government. Right. So they will never compromise that for anything. And time has passed, event has taken over that instance of what happened with the COVID. And now he's been forced again to resign, perhaps because there are other issues that may have emerged. For me, I don't think I would take it so far away from the global issues that is happening from the war bordering on Ukraine and Russia.
We'll get to that point.
Coming to the economic challenges.
Okay, we'll get to that point. Now, you just sort of, we'll get to that point. Now, someone is saying that these allegations leveled against Boris Johnson, they are trumped up allegations, and it's not enough for you to tell a prime minister to resign. What do you feel about that?
Thank you. What happened to Boris Johnson? You know, you can be smart and intelligent, having that intelligence, sagacity, but if you don't have good character to sustain that position, so that's actually what happened to Boris Johnson. So you saw late of last week how numbers or dozens of members of parliament resigned, including his own cabinet members. So you know, someone of Boris Johnson holding that position, the highest position, with that as the UK Prime Minister. So you have to be, you have to be all out with, when you say one thing, you should stand by your words. Okay, what happened to Boris Johnson was you made the rules that that the Britain is on lockdown. Then you are the one who defies the rules.
But is that party enough to knock him off as a prime minister?
Yes, it's enough because he denies he denied that allegation when he was confronted with that issue of, he said nothing like that happened. You understand? Yeah. So he lied. So he has survived a number of vote of no confidence. You understand? He has been living in denial, trying to hold on to power, when you know that your integrity is at stake here. You understand? Okay, just take for example the one that led to his resignation last week was his former Prime Minister, Chris Pincher, who was accused of sexual allegation. Boris Johnson denied that he knew nothing about it. But when information surfaced on the media about the whole saga, about the sexual scandal for groping two men, then Johnson later came out that he was told, probably he forgot.
Wow. So it all boils down to integrity?
Yes, it all boils down to integrity.
All right. I'll come back to you, Evans. Now, you heard him, he talked about the integrity of the man. But if you take a look at Boris Johnson, he's like a voice to be reckoned with in the UK Parliament. Even the Queen respects the person of Boris Johnson. Like what he rightly said, he has survived many votes of no confidence until the last one. Do you think that there is something else that really that is at play that we might not be aware of, that really meant to say enough is enough? Because something like you survived retinies of, attacks, so to speak. How come this time around you just couldn't get out of it?
Well, with the office of the Prime Minister, anybody that attains and occupies such offices would be liked first and foremost. Maybe not in person, but the office. It has a duty and responsibility to deliver the dividends of democracy to a country with probably one of the oldest democracies. They run a parliamentary system, and the parliamentary system is still very much intact. That parliamentary system is a system that we ran in Nigeria during the time of the Midwestern region, the Northern and the Southwestern region. We couldn't survive it. We had to, metamorphosizing to running a presidential system that is still compromised. So, as a leader in democracy, even if we know that there's no one without blemish, if you look at the way Boris Johnson emerged, it has a lot to do with him antagonizing David Cameron. I know that they went to Eton College. These were schools of people with high-profile families. These are expensive schools whereby only the people of a certain level break bread together. People of a certain level sat on the round table and have a discussion. So they are expected that those people are people of good character. They are expected that those people of such families are people of who the country relies on.
That are impeccable.
To produce the next leadership. And if you go to the history, if you look at the England platform, there's this different cadre of the people that speaks in some of Queen's English. You may not speak as much as the Queen herself does, but that is what everybody emulates. And when you look at Boris Johnson speaking, that is the way he picks his word and, you know, acts like a kind of a geek, because that is a character or a way of communication that they learn within that circle. It's a kind of a class thing. Somebody with class should ordinarily be expected to have personality of, when he says things, he means what he says, and he says what he means. He's not expected to be playing comics with, you know, him going after David Cameron. I've always wanted to be prime minister. And when they asked him, he said, no, he never wanted to be prime minister. Waiting for David Cameron to make a mistake. Then he was the mayor of England. Went down to earth, always funny with his funny looking hair, which is some of the
Ahead of Boris.
The English people like to be, you know, kind of like embroidered.
Associates with,
you know, they have his hair looking all funny, and people get to like that character about him. But the real Boris Johnson behind the scene is somebody who can be engaged in the process, say something and lie. And such things will not stay very long in the British political system. That is why even his ministers, his cabinet ministers, look at what they were saying, for instance. I remember when Gordon Brown used the word on certain people who had questions to do with, I think, from a fallout of a movement of protest on the Occupy Wall Street. Something like that. And there was a lady who perhaps was working with him down the street, and he referred to her as a pleb. A pleb means people who are of lower background and class. Unfortunately, that lady is an Englishwoman, and he is a Scottish. And in the realm of the power play and superior beings, the English are seen to be more superior than any other people within. So he ran into Nicky Waters, and they demanded that he must call for a referendum. They demanded there must be an election, which eventually cost him not to finish him becoming from a deputy prime minister to prime minister on the ouster of Tony Blair, who went to war with George W. Bush over the issues and problems from Iraq, whereby he came on board through that, you know, sort of backdoor, as they assume, and at the end, they were waiting for him to make a mistake because they cannot see him in quote as a citizen that they believe that they are superior to leading them. They called for an election and they lost out. So that is how the conservative came back into power. So when you look at these things, it's all centered around, like what my brother said, integrity. You know, you cannot tell them one thing or trying to behave in a certain way, irrespective of the comic and character that they may like about you. The prima facie thing, which is directly in contrast with democracy, it's not something you can undermine. The minute you undermine it, they come for you. That is exactly what has happened.
Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May,
Tony Blair,
Johnson, which is the latest right now. It's like they have this common thing.
Well,
all right, the one that went with Bush to war against Iraq event, so that they were lying and they were like, look, guys, this don't really happen, so please leave. So you have to leave. But is this healthy for UK politics? Because the last 3 prime ministers, they were hit with this resignation. I mean, is it really healthy?
The only thing that is constant is change.
Old problems in new ways.
You are not good.
That I know that even if things can sometimes seem dark now, our future together is golden.
The timetable for choosing a new prime minister will be announced
you should reflect that position. You should carry yourself with. UK is not just any country. You understand? So, Mr. Boris Johnson, no matter how other minister, previous minister, the UK they've had, some step down because of maybe their inability to transcend or their policy to reality. Like in the case of Theresa May, because of the Brexit and other issue. But in the case of Boris Johnson, he has been involved in a lot of scandals. You get it? Denial, constant denial, counter denial, you know, vote of confidence. Today, tomorrow surviving it, making, okay, just look at when he was making the last statement when he resigned, that he was forced, pressurized to resign.
Yeah, pressurized to resign. Yeah.
Despite when all the facts are glaring that you can no longer hold on to, you are no longer needed in this position. So you still, it is not Africa where anything goes. This is UK. So integrity, honesty comes first. That is what Boris Johnson lack. They want a true leader who represents the people, who can be trusted, that can translate look at what is bedeviling the UK now. Higher taxes, high cost of living and all that. They want somebody who can really tackle and fix the problem that is at hand. So they don't see Boris Johnson as the man for the job. So he has to go. So
all right, now for what is that he said, what happened to Boris Johnson is self-inflicted, because I'm going to ask you the same question. Is it healthy for UK politics? Take a look at Theresa May. She resigned. Boris Johnson resigned. Cameron resigned. All this plethora of resignation that hits prime ministers of the United Kingdom. Talk about democracy. Government for the people, by the people, and for the people. Is it healthy?
Well, that is what you're saying now. If you ask me, I would say that it is very healthy, because at the end of the day, it means that it is the people who entrust you with that power to represent them, that their interest is what they're looking at. If they was to look at it like, this is my friend, this is somebody I know, like I started with, ordinarily the people's interest would be jettisoned.
Yes.
But now the people's decision stands tall, because when you don't listen, they will vote you out. So democracy, in the model of all democracy, the United Kingdom pretty much colonized the whole world. They are the leaders. And tomorrow they remain relevant, not because they are the most populous nation, but they are the most dynamic and the most amazing country God has ever created. Because you look at all the antecedents everywhere you go, London, United Kingdom, the Queen of England, these people did not exist because people just liked them. They existed because they had something supernatural and special about them. And that specialty has a lot to do with value. It has a lot to do with history. It has a lot to do with who they are as people. And they are not ready to undermine that for anybody who becomes prime minister or who becomes maybe a foreign secretary. Theresa May, like you said, resigned. She was one time a home secretary. Secretary of the Home Office. So when you look at all these situations, that is why you see that in England and in the United Kingdom, people and life is still very balanced to a large extent. They cannot see you to be more better than this person. They believe everybody's equal. So if you go and represent them and you hold the highest office, they sent you there. And when you don't behave well, if Boris Johnson chooses not to act right with all that has happened to him, even as a member of a parliament representing his constituency, they can still go there and recall him. Because they wouldn't want, if you're not good enough to represent the country because they voted for you before you become a prime minister, they can as well go and vote against you in the election in the local level. So in England, you don't mess around with the voters. You don't mess around with the people and their thinking. And because of the fact that they have this thing about the United Kingdom whereby they believe that they as people still has to think in a certain way, which I know will not go away, whereby the English within the United Kingdom are the leaders. They have the most populace among the 60-something million people living in the UK, England, Scotland, and Wales and Northern Ireland. The English is over 40 million people, and that is where the Queen comes from. That is where David comes from. That is where Boris Johnson comes from. That is the ethnic group that they come from. That is the same ethnic group that has colonized even the United States of America. They colonized Nigeria. So that is not a place where you be and you don't expect to have your best practice and your best behavior, because they are seen as the leaders of democracy. So when it gets going and the going gets tougher, before you bring mess to that long cherished history of the kind of people that they are, trust me, they will ask you to leave.
All right. Like what you rightly said, he was talking as if he was being forced to resign. He never really wanted to resign. Do you feel that he was twisted to resign, to drop that position? Because even when after 50 members of his own parliament step aside, he said that he's going to remain as a prime minister. What do you think made him to finally resign?
Okay, thank you. Boris Johnson is not a novice. He has held a number of positions. He was a mayor, former mayor of London, from 2008 to 2016. Then he has also held the position of what's it called? Secretary of Commonwealth Affairs between 2015 to 2018. So he's not a novice. So when you are in government, this is not Africa. I will still go back to that.
You keep saying that it's not Africa.
It's not Africa. Yeah. When something happens, say, let's just sweep it under the carpet, where anything goes. A country cannot move forward that way. So no matter, UK, they practice parliamentary system of government. So it's not a country because we're having consistent change when this particular prime minister or leader doesn't do well. Then because of that, we now say, okay, since Boris Johnson is making a lot of blunders and scandals everywhere, we should just keep him in position because we don't want to change this particular person. No, it doesn't go that way. When you are in that position, in that kind of, he called the position one of the best position that it pains him to be living at this time, because he has also tried his own capacity. But you represent the people. So when the people does not want you anymore, you have to go. Because Boris Johnson, whether he was not going to survive the second, if there were to be another vote of no confidence, he was not going to survive it. Because he knew that all odds were against him. So he had to throw in the towel by resigning.
All right. Boris Johnson has been so vocal when you talk about the war between Russia and Ukraine. The likes also of Macron, they've been so strong in condemning Russia. And here we are seeing a Boris Johnson stripped of that power. Though he remains till autumn, do you think it's going to affect his enthusiasm when you talk about the support of Ukraine?
Well, just before I answer that question, I just want to add something to what my brother said relative to the questions you asked him about Boris Johnson claiming that he was untwisted. You see, that character alone, that fact of wanting to make people believe or say something that is not synonymous with what he has done wrong is a quick exit door for him. In the UK, the way the people live, they don't like people who are in denial. You have done something wrong. You've come out to claim that they've assisted you. You must be very careful. Otherwise, you'll be seen out of government completely. He will not even win his local elections to represent them in the parliament, because what he's trying to say in a nutshell is that he has not done nothing wrong. Even if he may have done something wrong, it's not enough for you to be crying more than the bereaved. Even when so many members of your same conservative party in the backbench have said you should go. These are people who share the same ideology as you. You've come out to say that you were untwisted. Untwisted that you were the first to resign, or what? So many people has resigned due to certain lapses in leadership.
But he never wanted to leave that position.
Yeah, if you never wanted
he was forced to leave that position.
If you never wanted to leave, that is what resignation and vote of no confidence is about. It's about putting pressure and forcing you to leave. So if other people has resigned and left, and you know that this position is very dear to you, is it not common sense that you should be sincere with how you're dealing with these people?
Exactly.
Not to make them look as if they don't know what they're doing, because you maneuver your way, skim your way through from a mayor. David Cameron made his mistake and left.
This came out really, he was a good politician.
No, because they asked him several. I remember most time when I'm there, they asked him, do you want to be prime minister? He finds a way to dodge it and continue what he was doing. Even when David Cameron came, he tried to engage him to be the foreign secretary. I think he was the foreign secretary. He still was not satisfied. He wanted to go for the number one seat. Now you've had the opportunity to be there. The most you can do is to serve them the salad toast. You've given them a bitter pill to swallow, and you want to come and assume that you're twisted to leave, which means you are insensitive to the wrongs you've done. In England, they don't take that from you. And that is by the wayside. On the issue with Ukraine, then that probably also be part of the whole idea of them thinking, if he has lied with point A, point B, and point C, in issues that is bordering on the issue of integrity, and they cannot see them labeled to be supporting such negative thing about the United Kingdom as the leader and the mother of the world. They are particularly the original godfathers of the world. They colonized America. You know what I mean? Even if the American system is a bit more aggressive and they're more bigger and a bit more strategically nationalist and powerful militarily, that doesn't undermine England in the scheme of things. They still call the shots a lot of times. The economic problems bordering from the fallout with the Ukraine and the West, the UK citizens will ordinarily think that he's also lying to them.
Lying to them how?
But you know, now you said that Russia was not doing well against Ukraine, they invaded them. It is bad, we will sanction you, XYZ. And all of a sudden the sanction is boomerang back to the UK. Cost of living has gone up, the cost of energy has gone up. Bordering on the fact that they fell out, they just came out from COVID. COVID created a lot of problems and economic hardship on the people. There were inflation, there was a lot of backdrop from standard of life dropping from COVID into another war. So they can turn around and say, if you are bad in X, Y, Z, why should we believe you on Ukraine and Russia? And all of a sudden we are paying the brunt again. You are a multi-millionaire. They come from a wealthy home originally. We are just the normal people that sent you there. Well, we don't need you there. So I think that may have played some kind of role to want him to go out. Because at the end of the day, it's just like, we can't just trust him anymore. If you listen to some of the commentators and the things they said about Boris Johnson, you pity for him. You know, the UK citizens, they went at him, they called him names. You know, so he must be very careful so that it's not completely out of the same.
All right, now back again to the Ukraine-Russia war. He made a very strong point saying that it was a backlash, so to speak, from the war that affected the UK, and there was a drop in living standard of the United Kingdom citizens, and they never really wanted that. Boris Johnson, as a prime minister, before he was hit by this resignation, he was equivocal, he was so vocal about his dislike for President Putin. He was so vocal about the encouragement he's giving to Zelensky, Ukrainian president. He was so vocal also on the UK support of Ukraine in terms of weapons, money, you just name it. Do you think all this would change after this?
I know there's going to be kind of policy shift in terms of probably the way Boris Johnson has been handling the issue of Ukraine, support for Ukraine and all that. You know, when this war started between Russia and Ukraine, so the Ukraine never had the support initially. Like when it started, it all started like a joke, you know. So what I mean by that is like in the person of Boris Johnson, a man who lacks that kind of integrity, honesty, being is like the people sent you there to that position. So if what you are telling us is not real, because what we are seeing here in the UK, you understand what I mean. So you're not be able to transcend that. So that is why the people who voted you there or who put you there, elected you there, said we don't want you. Now we are recalling you back. You are no longer needed. Simple. So there's no big deal about that. We sent you there. So we are recalling you. We no longer want you. Because here in the UK, in our own corridor here, 10 down the street, we know what you are involved with. Yeah. Let alone, you know, being in that kind of situation, a diplomat, like between two countries now. Yeah. So they will not get that result. But so far, I don't think there's going to be, in terms of the support for the Ukraine, that aspect of support for Ukraine, because I think the next prime minister, who will be elected on September 5th, will still continue. I hope we continue with the support where Boris Johnson had left.
Okay. He said the prime minister will continue. But right now, Boris Johnson is very, very cold about that Ukraine-Russia accent. Maybe he's licking his wounds, according to so many other presidents, because of the resignation. A tsunami, so to speak, hit him so hard. He was even vocal about it, that he never wanted to resign as a prime minister, but he just had to, step down. Can Zelensky still rely on Boris Johnson?
Well, Boris Johnson is no longer in the forefront of decision making within the United Kingdom.
But right now, I see the Prime Minister on Teal Autumn.
Well, it's like effort and futility. The man is thinking about the day he leaves now. You see, defeat is not a very good thing. For Boris Johnson to have stepped down as Prime Minister, he's just hanging on a thread. I'm telling you that right now, because he loved that position so much, he has little or nothing he can do. But the fact remains, I know that whoever becomes the Prime Minister may not necessarily pull out immediately from what they feel they perceive is a problem that would have led to them taking actions, first and foremost as a representative, to ask him to step down. If truly the economic problems in the UK has some kind of level of influence of why the representative has gone after him before the voters come after you to save their party, if the new Prime Minister comes and they continue on the same path, then next general election they will be voted out of government. I can assure you that, because England used to be very much more Labour, red, under Tony Blair, but because of the war in Iraq and what Tony Blair role was to do with Dr. David Kelly late, which I've mentioned here before, they talked about weapons of mass destruction and mobile laboratory.
Wasn't found.
When Dr. David Kelly had to commit suicide over the fact that Tony Blair lied, the whole country changed from that, and the issues of the housing boom and whatnot that was inherited by Gordon Brown, knowing fully well that the other aspect played out in terms of superiority and ethnicity, Tony Blair started a problem. So the country changed from red and pro-European and liberalism to become conservative because they felt that was the way to go. So if now they've taken actions and Ukraine issues is paramount due to our immediate benefits as Europeans, if they don't fix, if the next Prime Minister does not find a logic to appeal to them on an exit and resolution strategy, eventually they will get them at the general election. They will be surprised they will vote in a new government and they will lose it completely. So I know that the system may not change, but if that is something vital, they must find a way to work around that in order not to end up becoming an opposition as to what they are doing now as conservative. Because conservative time has been hopeful, where there was so much spending, there was unnecessary recklessness, but now we need to tighten the belt. We need to, it was what concerns them ordinarily that they voted why they voted the blue. So if that is not taken care of, which I'm voting to see what will happen, is a very dicey one.
A very dicey one.
Very, very dicey.
Very, very dicey. Now let's take a look at Russia. Putin is just there. People like saying that the Kremlin are just smiling at what was happening. You know, the president of France narrowly escaped, though he lost majority of the House. He's still there being the president, and now Boris Johnson has been driven up, so to speak, as the Prime Minister. Do you see the hands of Russia in this, hypothetically speaking? I mean, do they have one or two to do about all this? Because Putin is just, let's see how all this will pan out. We have a pro-Putin, a French president that challenged Emmanuel Macron, though she lost, but they also supported her in the House. Now for Boris Johnson, it was like, a one-way ticket resignation. Do you see their hand in all of this?
I don't think so, because when I started earlier, the issue of Boris Johnson was rather a self-inflicted one, because you expose yourself to the people. Because if not for that scandal, like when UK was on lockdown, you were busy with your party gate in 10 Downing Street. So how did Russia influence that? Because you broke the rules of COVID regulations. Then you were fined by the UK police. So it doesn't tell good of a leader like
Boris Johnson.
Someone occupy the office of a Prime Minister of UK. So he got what he wanted. So it is not related to Russia or Putin, or it's not. There's no element of political influence in my own view. In my own view, there's no element of political influence, because he suffered from his own injury.
Well, you heard him. He said there's no element of political influence from Russia. It's self-inflicted. Someone saying, if you want to take a look at this, what is speaking massively against Putin they've been asked one way or the other. Emmanuel Cameron, though he managed to win, he lost majority in the House. That went to pro-Russia, whether you want to believe it or not. And now there's a Boris Johnson that's been asked also, slammed with resignation. So do you see any connotation, any relationship with this?
Well, from what he's saying, he's speaking on a direct contrast on the issues. But if you look at it logically and in a pneumatic way, you know, when he calls somebody, hey, John, come, he said, I'm coming, but he's walking away, you know, he's coming back. In an idiomatic way or adversely, there could be some elements of proteins, you know, processes in the whole war thing, in the sense that, in the sense that, looking at Macron and what he escaped, that already shows to you that the war in Ukraine and Russia, and who is telling the truth and who is lying, irrespective of the faults being on both sides or who is right and who is wrong, there are elements of what the impact of that war is causing in Europe, immediately, you know, playing out in the political system. In France, if you look at what Macron was doing before his election, he was speaking as if he was a mediator, trying to look at the aspect of peace talk. That is what saved him from what they felt, well, if these guys were gunning, UK and America, Macron should be the peace talker. So in a way they wanted to, well, you cannot just probably change him. He's a young man. Why not look at things and see if we can give him a second chance? And irrespective of that, he still lost most of his seats. The minute he got back as president of France, he went back to the same card he was playing before he played, you know, the peacemaker thing. That is why Putin said, because they speak both French, they speak in French, he says, well, I can't trust this guy. 1 minute he comes to the Kremlin to want to peace talk, then he goes to European Union or whatever, start you know, supplying weapons. So he was lucky that he was so smart to play that game. I'm sure you saw at a point, one of his fans stood in the crowd and smacked him in his face during the campaign, remember? So if you're not taking from that point into the UK aspect of things, I'm quite certain that the Russian war has a direct contrast to what is happening. First and foremost, you've banned anything alternative views to do with the war on how Russians will put the message out for people to think and have alternative view. But at the same time, if you go to Russia and you look at the whole of Europe, the pro-European and American media houses are all in operation. Even in Russia, CNN is working. Even in Russia, BBC is working. Sky News is working. If the Russians are so bad as claimed by leaders, for example, Boris Johnson, who the UK citizens are already losing trust for, why are you banning their alternative messages to us? And yours in their own country is running. We can hear what they are reporting from them. But they say, no, you know, Putin has put decree, they cannot report this, they cannot report that. Forgetting that there has been direct report from Lugansk and the next region, which go directly to CNN or CNN or BBC. And these things are put out real time whilst they were winning the media war. So when the people start to think, don't you think that the Prime Minister is also hiding another secret? This can be so catastrophic, can be so big for us, catastrophic for us. And now the cost of living has moved from 10 pounds a week for supply of gas to 35, 40 pounds a week. How do we augment that excessive, you know, tripling of the price and cost of living? How do we pay for the increment in groceries? How do we manage with our salaries? Automatically, they are suspicious. So you can say that the Russian war and the way the West has handled it, they have paid the price while he's being removed as Prime Minister. But it's a 50-50 thing. Probability can either be right or wrong. So, but I know from my own experience and from what I've seen, having debated and been part of what has played out and what is playing out to do with Russia and Ukraine war and the role that this country has played, I cannot completely exonerate that backdrop of what may have happened in Russia and Ukraine to what may have been playing out politically. Because the Russian president and the Russian country actually put out a statement saying that they were happy. That they were happy that the man was removed.
Because Kremlin made a statement, they were so happy about it. They never hid it. They were like,
and the impact is this in England now and in the UK from the backdrop of energy supply.
I agree to some extent because there's economic impact.
Impact, yeah.
You understand? But the economic impact is the high increase in the standard of living in the UK, because these are the fight between Ukraine and Russia has resulted to the almost all over the world, has impacted all the countries all over the world.
Talk about inflation.
Inflation in the standard of living. So that is why, if you see the next prime minister that is coming on board now is trying to cut taxes. So that's why this Rishi Sunak,
yeah.
And the other person is in the
vice chancellor, right? The vice chancellor.
Yeah, the vice chancellor is in the front front, because he has the economic blueprint to try to transcend, to transform the high standard of living now currently in the UK.
All right, because right now it's going to be between Labour and the Conservative. You talked about when power shifted from Labour to the Conservative, when that there was a huge lie by the ex-white Prime Minister there. Said, look, there were nothing like mass destructive capability weapon in Iraq. Why would you go lie? And the people shifted from that Labour to the Conservative Party. And now Boris Johnson was accused of being reckless. There was some financial accusation leveled against him also. There were so many other accusations leveled against him that he just couldn't wriggle out of. Do you see power shifting from Conservative to Labour?
Well, if I'm to be sincere, I cannot tell you for a fact that I see power shifting from Conservative to Labour, because when you look at the political space of what has happened from the backdrop of NATO involvement in Libya and the removal of Gaddafi, and the influx of people from the North America into Europe, going through Malta into Italy and the UAE economic area countries into England. England and the United Kingdom is seen as an island that cannot have and accommodate so much people. So that is why the United Kingdom quickly pulled out of the European Union and they engaged in Brexit, because they know that the influx of people from North America, from the backdrop of the war that was created, for whatever reasons best known to them, if they were to remain in Europe, it means that they are obliged to accommodate some of this North African influx. People who are living peacefully, that you want to, create problems for, and they have nothing to do, nowhere else to go than to find a safe haven. So if England, the United Kingdom, can pull out of Brexit and renegotiate their relationship, which created why Germany and other countries became very hostile to the United Kingdom. Even if the war in Ukraine and Russia has brought them back together, because the Accord, the big brother, which is America, finds the need for them to fight. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be like it's going to be a clear cut. I don't think it's going to be a clear cut instance of what the UK citizens would think. For instance, if they think, well, Labour is near liberals. If we can look at it now, the Liberal Democratic Party, from the time of, I think it was Hague, a guy who was a leader of Labour Party, Liberal Democratic Party, for some reason, because of the anti-Semitics of European liberalism, of trying to use European law to undermine the values of the United Kingdom as a country, when they see themselves as leaders, as part of those leading in Europe, because all the transactions that happens in Europe comes through Canary Wharf in England. You know what I mean? So you cannot be seen as a second-class powerhouse when decisions are made from the ECB, from Europe. So that was why liberalism was wiped out of England political system. They were getting stronger, but they reduced them. So if those problems are persistent and they are there, don't you think the UK voters may think, well, if we vote in Labour now, for instance, or there's no balance, don't you think they may go back to having that mindset of wanting to allow these people come into the UK? Because if you go to England now, people have been moving from London to the outskirts and further into Gloucester or all these rural areas. And the more they move, the more civilization meets them, and civilization means having other ethnic minority groups and other people from other countries living within them. And there are core people who cannot exist within that framework. They keep pushing further north. So on that ground, I think what may happen eventually, there may not be a clear-cut win for Labour. There may be some kind of a hung parliament, whereby Labour gets a big chunk, Conservative gets a reasonable chunk, if they're able to manage their crisis, and then maybe other parties may come up. Because the UKIP, which was very like an extremist group, UK Independent Party, they couldn't really stand the test of time because they were able to make people understand that they were just too violent.
All right.
And at the end, I think if they have kind of a hung parliament, parties may start to kind of leverage and whittle down on some of their strongest point and find a way to meet at the center, whereby if you have Conservative or Labour forming a government with Conservative or forming a government with Liberal Democrats or Green Party, they may be able to have a kind of unifying models on how the country will be governed. Maybe that way, most interests will be
okay, I'm going to ask you the same question. They said that maybe power will not leave the Conservative Party. He gave an example of the laborers, talk about labor. He gave so many vibrant, recent, and of course, very, very important reasons why it might not leave the Conservative. Do you agree with his opinion? Because when people are like, skeptical, they're thinking, of so many blunders created by this Conservative. Don't forget that there is a may also say Conservative. We have Boris Johnson, Conservative, and they're having issues.
He's right in his own view. Politics is dynamic.
Yeah.
So nothing is constant. So if the Conservative Party puts their house in order by cleaning itself, of which they are doing, power may likely not shift. If they are on the other hand, they are able to transcend their policy, the policies which affect the people of the UK, to the grassroots, to the people. So I don't think there will be power shift. If otherwise, then the people will decide. The people will decide.
All right, now to call it a wrap on this show, close to 1 hour we've been talking. What do you think should be the next line of action for Boris Johnson?
Well, the next line of action for him, is to be a party man. He has to remain a party man.
To be a party man.
And the party gave him an opportunity to become the #1 leader. There are people who doesn't agree with Boris Johnson's full style of leadership. And those are the sort of people they'll be looking at now. So I saw them talk about Jeremy Hunt, one of the former foreign secretary who was got out when David Cameron left. So they may look at some of these people. But when I talked about power not leaving, I wasn't saying power not leaving the Conservative. I said a hung parliament. It means that there's no clear-cut winner.
No clear-cut winner.
So which means they may lose more with Conservative and Labour may gain more. And if they can't fix their home, like he said, they may have trouble. But for David Cameron going forward, I don't really think there's anything he can do. I think you can take from the examples of what has happened to the previous Prime Minister that has been forced to resign. What did they do? Whatever that they are doing, if they're supporting the party from any angle, I think it will belong to that class now. So there's nothing special about him resigning. It's not his first time. People who has resigned before, he probably will join that committee of friends and also make his contribution from the back door. So to me, that is what I think.
All right, so what do you feel will happen to him right now, the way forward? Because Cameron just packed his load and left. Cameron just because when that Brexit thing happened, you saw the big van he came with everything into the van. Theresa May also the same thing. We could hardly hear from her right now. Now Boris Johnson, what do you think he's going to do?
You see, Boris Johnson, instead of outright resignation and leaving, he said he's going to be a caretaker kind of, caretaker prime minister until a substantive prime minister is elected, then he can eventually leave. But I think he can go back to journalism. He has been a prolific journalist. He can, so there's power shift going on already. So
he can promote the green London, green UK, they have bicycles. So from Dustin
he can advise from the back door
from Dustin to South Auckland.
So he has from top To bottom.
To bottom. But what's the prime minister? What is the prime minister?
David Cameron had blunders too. Not just moving his things, it was linked to the mafias in Libya about how he was dealing with oil.
But he denied it. He denied it.
What do you expect him to do?
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Top notch. We're able to go around UK politics from the point I was able to gather from this. We talked about integrity. According to my analyst, that was where he was found wanting. Yes, they lack integrity. And of course, they opined that what happened to him was self-inflicted. And if you want to go towards conspiracy theory, you get to realize that those leaders have been vocal against Putin. One way or the other, they are receiving serious knocks. I mean, what's this about Putin, Russia, Ukraine war? I don't know, because Cameron, I beg your pardon, Macron narrowly escaped. But for Boris Johnson, it was like, resignation. All right, let's just see how all this will affect the Russia-Ukraine relation, how all this will affect also the contribution of the UK towards finding a lasting solution in the crisis. What about the inflation going on right now in Europe, even the UK, even the Americas? Because right now everyone's like complaining bitterly. Is Russia this powerful? Anyway, it's not about Russia, it's about Boris Johnson. Lessons learned: if you are a leader, integrity must be your watchword. You say something, you stick to that thing, no matter whose ox is God. You stick to your belief, don't flinch. That was where he was found wanting. He says one thing, you get to realize another thing is playing out itself. Come on, you go like, what kind of a leader are you? That is one of the reasons why he was shown the exit upon some accusation of financial inappropriacy and the rest of them, corruption. All this and more really made that vibrant prime minister to be shown the exit. Anyway, we'll do it again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.